Hello and welcome back to Coming to Resolution. Today, I would like to cover unresolved issues or unresolved conflict, I should say. And this is going to kind of cover the basis of any relationship, whether that be platonic or romantic or whatever. Um, because I have seen a lot of bridges burn, and I've also burned a lot of bridges by not resolving conflict. Whether that be we just stopped talking to each other after the conflict, or we never really addressed it and things just kind of built up, or, so on and so forth. Let's say you get into an argument over something, whatever it is you're going to argue about. And after this argument, neither of you decide to address the issue. You just stop talking. And it's a relationship that you really value. It just so happens that you two disagreed and it got heated, you know? Or maybe on another hand, someone was disrespectful to you or you were disrespectful to them, and there was never an addressing of the issue. Well, if any of these relationships that you have are invaluable, like you don't value them, invaluable is different. If you don't value these relationships, then maybe don't do this. But if there's a relationship that you put value to, you actually care to maintain this relationship, again, platonic or not, um, then issues need to be addressed. Conflict needs to be resolved. Whether that be you guys have another conversation, but you preface conversations like this with, this is going to be a conversation. I'm not looking for an argument. If they decide they want to take it to an argument, then maybe uh, maybe don't bother. Because I've also been there. I've tried to resolve conflict before, and I didn't preface, however, that I wasn't looking for an argument, but um, I was trying to explain my side of the situation and hopefully understand their side, and it turned into another argument. And at that point, I didn't try. There's only so much that I'm gonna do to save a friendship or a relationship whenever I'm coming at you civilly and trying to have a conversation about something and hopefully come to an understanding, and I'm just met with hostility. You know what I mean? Because if it comes down to I'm going to get hostility from trying to resolve an issue, I don't really care to solve that issue anymore. Now we're in a different territory. Now it's, for me, it's a matter of I'm going to let this person calm down and I'm going to go on about my life. And if for whatever reason we don't talk again, then that's fine. But in relationships that you value, I think it's important to preface these approaches with, I'm not looking for an argument. I'm just trying to have a conversation with you. For the simple fact that if you can disarm the situation or de-escalate the situation before it even escalates, then you're already ahead of the game. You know what I mean? Then there needs to be a conversation where you two come to an understanding. Sorry, I thought my leg was bleeding. Where you come to an understanding, and you resolve that problem. Anybody can problem solve. It's a matter of, are you going to be willing to do it whenever the other person comes to you, or you go to them? Are they going to be willing to do it? You know what I mean? Um, there have been a lot of conflicts in my life, and I'm at a point now where I don't really give a fuck to involve myself in conflict. So if one arises, I just remove myself from the situation. I may not even say anything about it. I probably you should, and I know I should. Um, but I just remove myself from the situation because I don't care to argue. I don't care to get to the level of screaming and yelling at each other and calling each other this, that, and the third because there's no productivity there. There's no positive interactions anymore. Now we're just screaming in each other's faces and we're not listening, you know? And when we're not listening, that means we're not going to come to a solution. We're not going to come to common ground even because we're too busy listening to respond instead of actively listening, you know? I've been guilty of this. I feel like everybody goes through life like this at some point or another where you just kind of you don't really care to listen to other people because maybe you don't think like that or maybe you haven't seen it from other people's perspective before. But that's what I encourage people to do is to see things from other people's perspective. Granted, you're going to be able to come to an understanding and talk about things civilly as opposed to it just turning into more conflict. And then that conflict gets unresolved and so on and so forth. It just turns into a pattern of unresolved arguments. You know, I've seen that and I've been in situations like that a lot throughout 25 years. You know, it's not a very long life, but I've seen it a lot. And it's not a good time for me. I don't I don't care to involve myself in arguments anymore. Um, if not a real argument, we can have a heated debate. You know, like if we're not getting to name calling outside of joking around with each other, then um, and yelling at each other, then I don't see a point in continuing in the conversation. If you can tell me a point in continuing that conversation other than to hurt that person's feelings, then by all means, I'm all ears. But sometimes most of the time, whenever you get to that point, you're not going to get to a resolution because now you're too fucking angry with each other to listen properly. Your brain's going 100 miles an hour and you're not listening to resolve, you're listening to respond. And responses aren't necessarily going to be productive, especially in a heated situation like that. So I will absolutely have a heated debate. We can get passionate about what we're talking about. That's fine. I can do that all day. We can have an actual conversation. We can get to debating and so on and so forth. But once it gets to an argument, I am no longer involved. I don't care. Sorry about it. Especially if it's somebody who I know knows better or knows me well enough to know that I don't really give a fuck to argue with people. You knew. You have already known this about me. I do not care. If this was a heated debate or we were just having a conversation or we were just fucking around and we got a lot of we were just fucking around and joking, like okay, fine. But since we're at the point of yelling at each other, I don't really give a fuck. It doesn't make any sense to me to tax myself for the sake of an argument in order to make a point that isn't even going to be understood, considering that that other person's not listening and I'm probably not listening to them either. You know? So um, I'm a very big advocate for if you can solve a problem, do it. If you can resolve a problem with someone, then do it. If it is beyond saving, which I feel like we exaggerate. If it is beyond saving, then sure, maybe don't. But um, we're gonna touch on beyond saving while we're on the topic because it feels to me like the line, the bar has been set lower and lower for beyond saving. And what I mean by that is we're not willing to accept certain things. And I understand if it's just blatant disrespect or someone's just calling you names or attacking insecurities that you have or whatever it is, like that I understand. But it seems to me that there are things that people aren't willing to accept that are illogical to me. It's a little unreasonable. Um, I can't even think of a good example right now, but there are things that I've seen that people decide that they're like trivial issues. Like it can be solved over hey, let's go to lunch and talk about this. Let's go have a coffee and talk about this. That's actually probably one of the better solutions I think you could have is you go and you have lunch with someone that you have a problem with. There's been a conflict and there's not been a resolution. You go eat food, good food, and you talk about a problem. You're probably going to walk out of there friends or having solved an issue at minimum because you're eating food and everybody loves food and you're talking about things. It's not like the problem never gets addressed. It's getting addressed while you're eating food and you're in a public setting, so you both look stupid if you decide to raise your voice. It's almost like this perfect little middle ground for everybody to meet in. That's a good fucking idea. If you need a mediator, don't bring an instigator. Somebody who is level-headed and knows how to de-escalate a situation. That's who you take. You don't take somebody you know is going to egg you on to talk more shit or even escalate the situation further and it go into a fight. Like you don't take an instigator. Honestly, I encourage people to keep instigators the fuck away from you, because all instigators are good for is disturbing your own peace. Doesn't bother them. Instigators just, they get enjoyment out of other people's issues because they're not involved in it. But every instigator I've ever met ever and called them out for it, every single time that someone has a problem with them, now they're the victim because they are having a problem with someone now. It's not them on the sidelines talking shit and egging issues on. It's now they have a direct problem with someone, and now they're the victim. If you're an instigator, don't do that. Um, that is another thing too. If you take a mediator with you, I honestly would encourage that if this has been an ongoing issue. Again, take somebody level-headed and someone who knows how to de-escalate a situation, someone you trust, you know, and make sure you communicate with the other person. Hey, I'm going to bring this person as a mediator. If you need to bring one too, then by all means. But I feel like once you get to a certain point, you're no longer going to have a certain point in how many people you bring. You're no longer having a productive conversation. Um, Honestly, it's probably better to just have the one mediator that both of you trust, or at least both of you can have a conversation in front of. Because mediators, it's rare that I have met a good one, but they are out there. I can be a decent mediator, but I don't really care enough to solve other people's problems for them. If two of my friends have a problem with each other, that is between them, and I don't care. If it is a situation where now it's affecting um, the time spent with the friend group, then I'll address it with one of them, if not both of them. Be like, you motherfuckers need to have a conversation because I'm sick of this. You know, and that's as far as I go. I will give advice if I need to. I will give them a smooth approach because everybody's different. You have to approach people a certain way. I will give them an approach unless they already know and or don't ask. Then I don't care. That is for them to solve. Um, but if you have a friend who is a good mediator and is not going to escalate a situation for you or disturb your peace even, then by all means take one. That has worked for a lot of situations. Um, Granted, those mediators weren't like snakes in the grass. You know what I mean? So, and unresolved issues, they only get worse. If you leave a situation, a problem unresolved, and there has been no conversation, nobody even addresses it, then the only thing that's going to happen is a buildup, or a bridge just gets burned. You know, if a buildup happens, then it just turns into um, a bunch of Coke bottles with Mentos. If you don't know what happens with Coke and Mentos, you put a couple Mentos in a Coke bottle, and then that Coke will just fucking spray everywhere, right? If you let a situation build up and you bottle your feelings up and so on and so forth, you will become the Coke bottle with the Mentos in it. You get shaken up, you explode, you know? Then your shit's everywhere. Because whenever you explode, you're not thinking straight. You're just screaming and crying, or even like getting aggressive, you know, and it turns into a messy situation. I don't feel like that's worth it. If it's a relationship that you value, the situation needs to be resolved. If it's a like a kind of a random person and it doesn't really matter to you, then I suppose maybe don't do this. But generally, I feel like it's a good idea to address problems together and problem solve and come to common ground, especially if this is a romantic relationship and you are going to take this seriously. That's when I think that's the most important. If it's somebody that you think you could marry or, live a long, fruitful life with, then that is 100% a situation where you two need to sit down and have a civil conversation instead of just letting a problem turn into more problems. Because that's all that's going to happen if you let unresolved issues go. It's a problem that turns into more problems. And that's not productive for anybody. It's not peaceful for anybody. Especially if you're the kind of person where that kind of thing just sits in the back of your mind and you're just stuck thinking about it, you know? Because then emotions build up. And when emotions build up with no resolution, then there's a problem. You're not letting the feelings out. You're not talking about the certain situation with that person. If you want to go to somebody and ask how to approach a situation like that, by all means, I suggest you limit who you talk to about certain situations, because some people are just full of shit. Some people will look you dead in the face and they'll smile and they'll give you good advice and then turn around and use that situation against you in some way. So I suggest you're careful in who you choose to speak to before you address this problem directly, if you choose to do that. I've seen a lot of problems where someone asks someone else advice, and that person who gave the advice decides to turn around and make it a bigger problem than what it was, because of miscommunication or just straight up lying to someone. Oh, they said this, but that never came out of your mouth. You know what I mean? So solve your problems. It'll be a lot more productive for you in the long run. I apologize today. I'm a little lower on energy. I'm kind of just feeling the burnout. Not from this. I love doing this shit, but just life in general, you know? Um, so I apologize, but I hope that this helps you. I hope that you can take something from this and use it. Um, but that's all I got for this one. I will be uploading a video probably Thursday. And I hope you all have are all having a wonderful week. And I hope you're all living peacefully. I will see you later.